A few items of business to take care of, so I'll call the meeting to order. And after we've finished our business meeting, we'll go into our closed session for our workshop. All right, first order of business this morning is the consideration of the minutes of October 10, 2012. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor of the minutes of October 10, 2012 as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. All right, the next is the consideration of the draft treasurer's report for October 30th, 2012. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Okay, discussion. Kevin, did you have anything to point out?
Not unless anybody has any specific questions on anything, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Hearing no questions or discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of the draft treasurer's report of October 31st, 2012, subject to audit, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Who made the motion on that?
I did.
Pat, and who seconded that?
Who seconded it?
Who seconded it?
I know.
George, okay.
You gotta stay up with it.
I've got you guys moving like light speed here.
Well, George said this morning he was having a little trouble there. He was going to turn his...
Usually this is a task done by somebody else, and so I got to kind of go and
Yeah, we got to kind
A new role
of keep
here.
you up to speed there.
We'll talk slowly, Kim.
Grab yourself some coffee or something there, Lou.
Steve.
Exciting so far, Dick?
What happened?
Like the Knights of the Round Table. Square.
Oh, yeah. This was before they invented the wheel. Okay. The next is the executive board approves entering into an agreement with the NRBC to provide services requested by HEAL. I'll take the motions and then we'll discuss. Do I have a motion?
so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Barbara, thank you. All right.
Okay.
For discussion.
This is a $5,000 agreement that the Healthy Eating Active Living community had received approximately $50,000, and they're seeking assistance from all 9 regional planning commissions with mapping services and other support services as they pursue activities to promote healthy eating activities, livable, walkable communities around the state. And it's, like I said, it's a small contract. They don't have the technical services in-house to provide that kind of support services, and so they've requested RPCs to provide assistance.
Question, discussion?
NRPC coming to it.
They are the lead RPC on that, and they're subcontracting those funds to the other 8 RPCs.
So for us, it's just money, it's not tying up staff?
It would fit in smoothly with the kind of work that we usually do.
This doesn't have anything to do with United Nations Action Item 21, does it?
I don't know, but we can keep trying.
Exactly.
Black helicopter.
Okay, any other questions, anything else?
Do you take questions from the audience?
We don't, we haven't provided for public input, this is an executive session meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion, further questions? Call the question then. All those are in favor of entering into the agreement with the NRPC to provide services requested by HEAL, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, I so declare it. All right, the next item, and one of the reasons we delayed a little bit there, Boone, was for you to be with us. See as how you seem to be the principal figure on this. This is a request for, this is our request form for LRPC records, and so we, since you've been the lead on that, I would take the motions first, and then we will discuss it and see where we go from there.
Okay, basically,
I'd like, if I could, before we start the discussion, just to keep everything in order, somebody would move it.
I move that we approve the
Lauren,
Second.
second, Pat, thank you. Get a vote?
Yep, I did, thank you.
All right, now, please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just for my education, who's the gentleman over here?
Please identify yourself, sir.
I'm Tim Carter.
Are you with any particular organization?
I'm a citizen here in Meredith as a part of the Lakes region. Is that,
Sure, no, that's good enough, just ask.
okay?
It's going to be a discussion
Okay.
Oh.
What this document is a request form, obviously, if folks are seeking documents under New Hampshire's right to know law. And one of the primary purposes of this document is for quality control purposes, to make sure we know when a request came in. The law requires a 5-day response period, so that we can know when the request, the date of the request, log it in, and have a written record, so that if it comes up at a later time, whether we complied, we will have a customary, regular practice business record that establishes that, hopefully we did. And it will identify the record sought, so again, that there won't be any dispute. There shouldn't be a dispute between the party making the request and the LRPC. They tell us exactly what it is we're looking for, and if it's a document that they're entitled to have, we'll have a clear record of that fact. Part 3, which is, I had down the bottom of page 1 that your request is subject to fees itemized in part 3 below. There are really sort of 3 pages there. One is the per page copying. The second is a search fee. If the request is for a voluminous amount of records, or if it's sort of a generic request, we want all documents pertaining to subject XYZ that took place between 2011 and 2008. Well, you'd like a more narrow definition, but if that's the best definition you got, it's going to take someone a substantial amount of time to go through. So there will be a search fee. And then the third is what I call a processing fee. There are certain documents that we're not permitted to disclose. You know, the records that deal with, you know, confidential personnel records or law enforcement, not that that would affect us, we're not a law enforcement agency, but the statute itemizes certain types of documents that the public is not entitled to, or certain information contained. Certain documents are disclosable, but there may be portions of them that are not disclosable, whether under state law or under federal law and laws other than the right to know law. And those have to be redacted out. And that, again, takes someone time to sit down, identify what portions need to be redacted, redacting them, copying them, and that can be a time-consuming process. So what we've asked for is this form contemplates that there will be an advance payment. In other words, someone tells us what it is we want, we get back to them within 5 days and say, okay, we're on it. It's either we've got your documents or it's going to take us some extra time because of the nature of your request. And we estimate that's going to be like 100 pages or 1,000 pages or whatever it is at, you know, and here's what we estimate the fee to be. And make sure that they pay it, because you don't want to undertake an enormous amount of work and diversion of, you know, staff, time, and effort from other projects, only to have them say, I'm not interested after all. And then the final part, again, is for quality control purposes, so that we have a record of, you know, when we contacted them, to let them know the nature of the contact, and that, again, for quality control purposes, whether to tell them, yes, we're processing it, or your documents are ready for pickup, whatever it might be, the number of pages, and then the various fees, and then the name of the party who actually handled it, so that if a question comes up 6 months down the road, you have a record of who actually handled it. And it's not one of those things like, gee, we can't, you know, we had a whole bunch of requests, no one can remember exactly who it was. So that's its purpose. I know without getting into detail, Kim had some other questions. And I think the real, you know, I don't believe, at this point anyway, that the law is so evolved that we can require, be specific in the nature of the form of payment, like it has to be cash or a certified check or something like that. I'm not comfortable in making that. So that's why in this form, for example, if somebody gave us a check and it turned out to bounce, there would be a return check fee. And I think that's just a risk we have to assume. Hopefully that won't happen. The real trick of this, though, is having a person or persons within our organization who are designated as the people who process these types of documents and who are trained. You know, most of the time, when someone asks for a document, the answer is fine. We'll make a copy, and it's for you. The policy of the law is to encourage disclosure, and the public's entitled to know what the public's business is and how it's conducted. That's not a problem. However, there are a whole bunch of issues. There are going to be a minority of cases, but they get very tricky. And I'm not going to waste our time right now going through what all those things are, but I think I identified in my email to you, Kim, the pages from the Attorney General of New Hampshire publishes a memorandum that's about this thick. It's hundreds of pages of analysis, forms, statute, whatnot, and questions and answers where they deal with a whole raft of issues. And while those issues hopefully wouldn't come up so often, they will come up. And you need to have someone within the organization who at least can identify the issue. They may not know the answer, but they can at least flag it so that if further analysis is required, they can be kicked up a notch to whomever needs to make that analysis. But it is, you know, and I don't know if we're budgeted for this, whatever, but it's just something that we have to have in place, because you just don't want people responding to these questions without some training and some familiarity of what the law is and how the Attorney General's interpreted it. And the Attorney General, I think, updates the memorandum each year. It's online. I know that in the past year, the New Hampshire Supreme Court has rendered several decisions, about 4, I think, 4 or 5 decisions involving the right to know law. So it's an area of great interest, obviously, and one where the law is evolving. So you need to be constantly aware of that and updating, and have a set of internal procedures to establish that we are in compliance and are trying our best to make sure that people making lawful requests get the information that they're entitled to have.
Okay, questions for whom? Yes, Bob.
I just have one. I assume that, as written, we would leave the rate open and write that in on a request basis, if that, or were we gonna?
I left it blank because I had no idea what it would be.
If
We should have a published
yeah, that's what I was gonna
rate,
say.
and maybe the better way of handling this is to say, you know, you're subject to these fees, you know, as stated from time on in our rate schedule, and then just hand them a rate schedule so that, you know, if copying costs, you know, the cost of toner or whatever goes up, you can make it an instant change without having to go in and just on your schedule, as opposed to having to go and change all your
So
forms.
rates could, over time, could vary from year to year, going up or down.
Sure.
So if we went as it's written, to, you know, fill in the rate
Yeah.
or something, we'd need some policy somewhere that this is our rate schedule for this year. So that people could be assured they're not being charged more or less than somebody else.
I think that's a really good comment, and I would change, I just was trying to flag issues here, but I would take out the specific and just say, you're subject to these, you know, a search fee, a redacting fee, you know, whatever, copying fee, you know, as stated from time to time on the attached schedule, and then we can just amend the schedule as required.
I did have a question also. Are there provisions that, you know, there'd be a certain publication that's already ready, or things that they wouldn't pay for, or standard pages that we wouldn't charge them, or will this start from the get-go?
Also a very good question. If we have documents that we've already prepared that we hand out for free, because we want people to have it. Someone comes in and says, could I have it? You go, sure. Here you go. You're not going to charge people for something that you're prepared to give away for free. And you want it. The other thing to keep in mind is this law deals with documents. In other words, documents that already exist. It doesn't require you to create new documents. So, if for example, if there are minutes of a meeting like this where we discuss a policy, that is a record that exists and people would be entitled to see what we're thinking about. However, they can't say, what is your, what is your position on X, Y, and Z if we've never addressed that issue? And we have, no formal document that's produced in the normal course of our business. That's just not anything we have to respond to. Now, I think we should advise people, like, you've asked us, there are no documents, hence, we're not responding. You always, I think, want to close the loop so someone can't say, I made a request and you never responded to me within 5 days, therefore you're in violation, therefore I'm going to go sue you and get some court order, mandating you do something in the future, which is sort of a waste of everybody's time and money, and ridiculous.
I had emailed you this question, you said perhaps that it'd be, we could talk about it a little bit. In the interest of time, this meeting is running a little bit over already. But I had asked about you may have just answered it, the definition of a record.
Yes, it is addressed. And this is a topic that you could spend a full day and you wouldn't waste a minute. There are lots and lots of issues, and just how far you want to go into the details. I'm assuming we don't want to do that today because our agenda is to do something else today, and we're just broaching the issue, but at least we have it up on the table. And I think training is going to be the big thing. That's the big issue, just getting someone familiar with what the general requirements are. But we can talk about that another time.
That's one option. Good.
And just amend the motion, I made the original motion, can I amend it pending the staff developing an annualized rate schedule that would accommodate this?
Yeah, we have a rate schedule already in place for photocopies and things like that that we've been using customarily. But so I imagine it'd be similar to that.
But if you already have it, then we don't have the concern. We can just
Yeah.
that just applies in this
That's
case
been
also,
kind of-
as it applies to all.
Right, it's a copy is a copy,
Yeah.
essentially. And the other stuff, in terms of any extensive amount of time that might be needed, we would build that in as we would do a project, okay? If there's it's going to take, looking at records from 1975, and we would have to say, okay, we have records of those meetings, but it's going to take, a day of labor to go ahead and go through all that stuff and put this thing together, so the cost would be X amount based on
We should put onto this form the community.
I was unclear whether or not you actually wanted it on that form or just refer to kind of our standard office procedure on copying and fulfilling requests.
The only issue would come if they ask me to do something that isn't on that thing. The individual should always know ahead of time what the cost implications are of their request.
Yeah,
And so-
we would provide that in advance.
Yeah,
Right.
And it would just fill in the
That
blank
would
there.
be the first
Right.
response, like within 5 days you come in, you say, we understand these are the documents you want, they're off-site, we will have to, pull them out of the warehouse and search, and we estimate that will take X amount of time, and, it'll take us another 2 weeks to, go through and make sure that we've got everything. But you need to tell them that within that first 5 days.
Correct.
And if it's a document that's readily available, if someone comes in and says, can I have last month's executive board committee minutes, presumably that's something someone could say, sure, wait 5 minutes and we can get that for
And I
you.
think the motion can stand as made.
I have a question though, if I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, you first, please,
To
Mike.
reiterate, you mentioned about a check, not a check, bouncing, not bouncing,
Mhm.
whatever. Did you say that we can't ask for a cashier's check or a money order?
I don't believe that we can. None of this is addressed in the Attorney General's memorandum, and it's not addressed in statute either. And
I just want,
Maybe ultimately the Supreme Court, if it ever hears this, will say, yeah, you can, but it's not there yet. It hasn't addressed that issue, and I feel more comfortable saying, pay by cash or tongue-tied, pay by check. That if someone walked into your town hall, they could give a check. And
That's true.
I don't think we should be any different, and if their check bounces, I think you're entitled to charge a fee, because you possibly incur bank fees and certainly processing inconvenience. And obviously, that person, if they make a request in the future, you might want to cash the check first. Make sure it clears before you hand over the goods.
Okay, I think in the interest of time here, I'm not sure that we don't have some more questions, some more discussion. And perhaps the best thing would be to continue this at our next meeting. We got room on the agenda for next meeting, right?
We can put it on the next meeting agenda if you'd like.
So if I can have a consensus here, we'll just continue this discussion and answer the question and vote on it at the next meeting.
Looking for a
Have a
motion
chance
to
to
table, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon? You,
All right, so moved.
do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of tabling this till our next meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank
Yes.
you. One opposed. One no. Okay. That ends our public session.